Several NATO countries have spent the week trying to deter Russia from invading Ukraine, but the situation remains largely unchanged. A new poll by Morning Consult shows Americans are feeling generally supportive of U.S. efforts to resolve the conflict. It found 57% of U.S. voters support a diplomatic approach. For more on this, I want to bring in Jason McMann. He's a geopolitical risk analyst at Morning Consult. Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. U.S. troops are setting up in Poland should they need to evacuate Americans from Ukraine. How serious has this become?
It's difficult to say. I think when it comes to Russian President Putin, for example, nobody has a crystal ball at present to kind of read into his mind. I would say what the U.S. actions that we've seen in Poland today suggest is that the Biden administration is kind of especially concerned about having logistical groundwork in place so that in the event that the government did need to get U.S. citizens or Americans out of Ukraine, they have the ability to do so quickly.
The Biden administration received criticism over its evacuation from Afghanistan in August. How do Americans feel about the situation in Eastern Europe right now? Do they support troops being deployed there?
In general, what we're seeing in our data over at Morning Consult, and this is from a poll that we fielded among American voters on Monday, is that concern about the Ukraine situation is generally quite high. About 2/3 of Americans are at least somewhat concerned about what the situation looks like there today. When it comes to any American interest in doing something like sending additional troops either to Eastern Europe or to Ukraine, for the most part, what we're seeing is that Americans are a bit hesitant. If diplomatic negotiations or sanctions still appear to be on the table in terms of things that could lead to an outcome that falls short of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, Americans seem to prefer those options at this point in time relative to sending additional troops.
Jason, of course, one of the sticking points in this crisis is whether or not Ukraine should be allowed to join NATO. Russia wants Ukraine to be barred from joining the alliance. The U.S., of course, has refused. Is this something that Americans really care about? How strongly do people here in the U.S. feel about Ukraine as an ally?
In fact, we're seeing a few relevant things in the data. What we're seeing in general is that most Americans do, in fact, view Ukraine as an ally or as a friendly nation, and perhaps not surprisingly, Russia as an unfriendly nation. When it comes to the NATO question in particular, what we're seeing is that about 2/3 of respondents in the U.S. do have an opinion on the matter. And among those 2/3 of respondents, we're seeing that about 2/3 of those, so about 49% of half of American voters writ large, do support keeping the door open to Ukrainian membership in NATO.
And Jason, what are the economic concerns for the U.S. if Russia does invade Ukraine?
It's a great question. What I would suggest is that for the most part, any U.S. companies, not surprisingly, with some market exposure to Russia, could be hit by knock-on effects. I would say in terms of thinking through some secondary effects, Russia and Ukraine combined, for example, account for about 1/3 of the world's wheat exports. And so you can imagine a scenario where perhaps we see rising food prices in the U.S. If there were to be an invasion and wheat supplies were disrupted rather, and you could also anticipate perhaps some increase in gas supplies in Europe. Continental Europe is to a larger degree dependent upon Russian gas. And sort of a reduction in gas supplies to Europe is also something that could be potentially on the table in the event of an invasion.
Jason McMann, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.